New Year's Eve has always been a very good time, not only to be welcoming the new year to us, but most of all, to be able to watch those amazing fireworks on the TV or in person. But as I was getting older, I was actually more and more invited to some New Year's celebration by some friends or some relatives. But there is only one time that was, well, creepy. Not to me, but to my wife, Vicky. I'm Jason, by the way. When this happened, I was about 28 and Vicky was about 27. And it was about the transition from 2014 to 2015. So yeah, me and Vicky, we were actually invited to my best friend Hugo, who's having his own New Year's celebration that particular New Year. And we had no other plans for that particular day though, so we went. And there were at least a dozen other people there. Everyone seems to have a good time. And most of the time, it was actually much uneventful. But it wasn't until like midnight when Vicky was approached by a guy named Simon. It was clear to her when she mentioned it to me much later that he was so wasted when he was hitting on her, and when she said no, when he asked her to take him back to his place to have some quote unquote fun, she even told him that she was married. But he clearly didn't listen to that and kept hitting on her when she yelled so loud enough. This was just before midnight, so the fireworks had even been started. So when did the fireworks had been started? Well, maybe her voice wouldn't been heard enough, so she yelled at him to stop as he was trying to drag her out of the place. Luckily for me and Hugo, we heard this. We stopped Simon and he told us to leave him and his date alone. I told Simon that Vicky is my wife and she didn't want to go with him. So Simon was pretty much kicked out for the party, and well, I never saw him again. And I only heard from Hugo that Simon was a colleague of his, like more an acquaintance, which he invited just to be polite. But he didn't interact with much with Simon afterwards. I could tell that Vicky was pretty shaken up, but the rest of the evening went pretty much uneventful afterwards, and I promised Vicky that I will always be there for her no matter what happens. To Simon, I'm glad that we never ran into each other again, because if we do, or if we ever do, I will tell you to back off because she's my wife. My name is Maria. New Year celebrations has always been a huge part of my childhood. Especially when I was growing up, my family always threw a New Year's celebrations with our neighbors. They were always fun, with us just sitting there or standing watching the fireworks, or even sometimes even fire off our own fireworks. That was also fun. But as I was getting older, I actually started being invited to some friends who also had New Year's celebrations. But there's only one time that was not that much of fun for me though. It happened when I was about 22 years old. It was around the New Year's between 2009 and 2010. I was at a party with my fiance Daniel, who was 23 at the time. We were actually invited to my best friend, also my coworker Sarah, who was 22, like myself. When we arrived at Sarah's house, there was at least 12 other people there. And there, it was when I met Tony. Tony is Sarah's neighbor, and he was 25 at the time. At first, he seems to be a polite, a pleasant person to talk to. We did actually had a good conversations. We talked about how much the year passed, and what things have been happened, and what we expecting might happen the next year of 2010. But it was around just before midnight, and really before the fireworks were set off, that Tony walked up to me again, and he was so wasted even I could tell. He even tried to hit on me, and he said, quote unquote, "I would love to date you," he said, which was a bit cringe and also a bit uncomfortable. But I told him I was already engaged. Somehow that triggered an anger in him. He told him that I had been flirting with him the whole evening and I was sitting on hitting on him, which wasn't even true at all. But I told him to leave me alone. I tried to leave, but he just yelled at me so loud due to the fact that he was so wasted. But good things for Daniel, a few others heard this. They told Tony to leave, which they pushed him and he did leave. Sarah eventually apologized about Tony's behavior, and even though when I went back to Sarah's house from time to time ever since then, I never had the luck to run into Tony ever again, which was a good thing to do, since he felt made me feel so uncomfortable, and honestly, I have no idea what would he have done otherwise. I know for a fact when people are so wasted of alcohol, they can be unpredictable. So, yeah. And for Tony, please, I don't want to meet you ever again. And another thing is, I don't want to date you because now I'm happily married to my beloved husband Daniel. So, yeah, thank you for that, but no thanks.